Hello everyone. It's been a while since I made a video on YouTube. I haven't even been flicking through it properly yet over the last few days. I haven't really been keeping up with what's going on. I've been too busy. But I've had a little flick today, read a few comments and stuff like that. And there's, I like going through the comments, negative or good or bad. I like to read them, and sometimes they can give me stuff to talk about. And there's a couple of questions a couple of comments that keep cropping up, which is, are you fighting again? Why aren't you fighting? You should change your channel to bodybuilding, and just all the stuff like this. And I think no one's ever happy with what you're doing on this corner of YouTube. No one's, I train because I like to train. I box once a week, and I lift, and I try and stay fit, and I try and look good because it's good for your health, but it's good for my mental health. It's good for me, for my brain. It's good for it's a positive obsession. It's a healthy obsession for me. I train 2 or 3 times a day. I eat healthy. I'm sitting at 7% body fat. I'm feeling good about myself. I'm waiting on an operation. I'm sitting with the surgeon on the 15th of this month, and then we will know where I'm at with my neck and the nerve damage I've got down my arms. But still being able to push myself to the limit with weights, strength and conditioning, cardio. I'm still doing everything I can to stay fit, to stay sharp, to look good. I'm still doing everything I can, and people just don't seem to be happy with it. It's just like, I thought you were injured. You do all this training but you don't fight. Like, regardless if I don't fight again, I'm still going to train at a level of at the highest. I'm always going to train as much as I can. I'm always going to train at a level that it's all I know. It's all I know. I train like I'm fighting. I train like I'm in a fight camp. I'm obsessed with it, and it's good for me. But there's one comment that says, you might as well change this channel to Paul Venice Bodybuilding instead of Paul Venice K1 Kickboxing and Boxing. And I think, you've got a point there, to be fair. Because if it comes to it where I can't fight again, I don't need to fight again. I want to fight again because, I spent 5 or 6 years out of the ring, and I made the decision to come back, and I've only had 2 fights. I feel like I've only scratched the surface. I feel like I've got unfinished business, especially in the bare knuckle. I'd like to win a title in bare knuckle. I'd like to carry on the bare knuckle, but if it comes to it, my health is far more important. My health is far more important. I've got little kids and grandkids, and I still need to work. I still need to hold pads. I still need to be able to train. So I've got a lot more at the forefront of my brain that's more important than fighting. I do want to fight again, but if I don't, that's fine. I think I've done enough in the fight world on a British level to be able to carry on talking about fighting, and not need to prove myself to anyone, regardless of what anyone says. I just think that, I've had more fights than anyone in this corner of YouTube, which I have. I'm a 40+ fight veteran. And I've done things that, regardless of what anyone says or tries to put my fight career down, I don't really care, because I'm very, very proud of what I've achieved and what I've done and what I've accomplished and the people I've beat. I'm happy with what I've done. Even with the one bare knuckle fight that I've had, I headlined, the biggest bare knuckle show in the UK, if not in the world. I headlined it. For my first ever fight, regardless of who my opponent was, it doesn't matter. It was one of the best shows I've ever seen in the UK, in Newcastle. It was a privilege, and I'll forever be grateful. So even if I did go out with just the one fight, at least I say I can do it. At least I say I can give it a go. And that's something to always be proud of. Now I want to move on to the little bit of the bodybuilding. The bodybuilding was my first love. I enjoy bodybuilding more than I do fighting. It's just I'm better at fighting than I am a bodybuilder. But I do enjoy the lifting and the bodybuilding and the strength and conditioning more than I do fighting. And that's just because I was brought up around it. I was brought up around bodybuilding. I remember being a kid and looking at my dad and thinking, wow, that's how I want to be. I want to look like that. I want to be like him. My dad's 60-odd-year-old and still lifting, still looks class, still looks good for his age. And I want to be that type. I want to be that guy. I want to be that type of person that is at an age where I still look good, still feel good, still have the ability to train, and push myself to the limit. I watch my dad train, and he's like, I'm still in awe of him. I'm thinking, wow, the intensity that he brings into the gym, the way he trains. I think, yeah, that's how I want to be. That's the person I want to be at. You know, that's I want to be like my dad. You know, and yeah, you know, if it comes to it where I can't fight again, or I make the decision not to fight again, which I don't know whether I am or I aren't. You know, then I'm cool with it. You know, I don't mind trying to get into the bodybuilding and seeing where I'm at with the bodybuilding, see if I can compete as a professional bodybuilder or even an amateur bodybuilder. You know, I'm 40 in 2 weeks. You know, I've got the world at my feet. I'm clean. I'm sober. You know, I don't drink. I don't party. I don't have any unhealthy habits. I vape. That's about it. You know, other than that, you know, I can do whatever I put my mind to. I really, really can. You know, I have the drive and the dedication and the consistency to be able to push myself to any type of limit when it comes to the gym. And yeah, like I said, I'm sitting at 7%. I'm sitting just over 7% body fat now. You know, all I would have to, and I'm pretty big anyway. I carry a lot of muscle, so I could just do a little bit of a cut, take a bit more shape, and I'll be right. You know, I'll be right. So you never know. I might change this channel to Paul Dennis Bodybuilding. But I think I'll always, once I'm, you know, I think I'll always hit pads. I think I'll always want to spar. I'll always want to train with the boys. I'll always want to, you know, I'm always getting messages, you know, people wanting me to spar with their lads and pros and, you know, K1, MMA, boxing. You know, I have some high-end, some big names always messaging me for sparring. So it makes for good content, doesn't it? So I'll always stay sharp. I'll always try and stay on the ball when it comes to fighting and stuff. So I'm not just turning up sparring and getting my head punched off, because I did that at the beginning. You know, I remember travelling around and sparring with Mick Terrell, Matt Legg, you know, and I wasn't really training. I was more of a bodybuilder then, you know, and it showed because I was a bit stagnant with my feet, and I wasn't moving my head, and I was just stood up straight trying to, you know. But I think I'll always try and stay sharp, and I'll always, you know, train in combat sports because I love it. I enjoy it. You know, I think there's no better cardio, if I'm being honest. So yeah, God bless, guys. Big love. Take care.